Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. I hope everybody is doing great. I hope that you have gotten your weekend off to a great start. I am going to start by reminding everyone that we are still in the middle of a fundraiser, a targeted fundraiser for Black Men Lead, which is a combination of a rite of passage initiative for young Black males 4 to 13 and um, wraparound services for Black males to the age of 30 and beyond, including mental health services, skills training, and more. We also have the Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters initiative for young Black females, um, teens through young adulthood. But right now, we are definitely asking for support. There's so much going on in the community. I'm gonna talk about much of it as I can this morning, but we need support. There's so much work to be done in the community. Those of you who have followed me for any stretch of time understand the depth of what we are fighting against, understand the threats that are in the community, understand the problems we're having within ourselves, and there is a need for us to be engaged. And we have been doing this work for decades. I'm not new to the game. I've been doing this for a while. Arthur 24 books on 25 and 26 as we speak. Unbelievable number of academic papers, the research. In fact, Black Men Lead is the culmination of years of research to understand African American adolescent and young adult male violence. So much more came out of it. We learned that we can keep them in school and educated. We can keep them out of prisons. We can make them better fathers, better husbands by properly socializing them. That's what Black Men Lead is about. We need to take that national. We need to have a network throughout cities where we are developing a universal understanding of what manhood is, because it is evident by the things that I have seen in the past 2 years that we don't have an understanding of what manhood is. Everybody is declaring something, everybody is proclaiming something, but very few people are walking it. And so it's time to get that done. So I encourage you to support the work we do, so that we can consistently make a difference, because if we don't, the future is bleak. I'm sitting up and I'm talking to a couple of colleagues of mine, and we're talking about the current state of Black America and that we are steadily on the decline, and that most people are either oblivious to it or simply don't care. And I look around and I see a spike in suicides of young Black males and young females under the age of 30. I see an increase in an already alarming rate of African American adolescent and young adult male violence. I see an alarming trend towards that same thing in incarceration, which we've been dealing with now for close to 30, 35 years. And I can go on and on. And when I was asked, what do I think the problem is? I immediately said the enemy within. I said that there's a darkness accompanied by the enemy within that is the greatest threat to Black progress. And, everybody loves to talk about white supremacy racism. I've studied it before I was an adult, uh, on the heels of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who is the reason that I'm in the field of psychology. Uh, Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., because he was her mentor. And then it just cascaded from there with Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Amos Wilson, um, Dr. Howard Stevenson, Dr. Joy DeGruy, and so many more, that paved ways and pathways to gain an understanding of what we're dealing with. And we can go all the way back to Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who explained the power of controlling the Black mind. And right now, the Black mind is not under the control of Black people. And until we understand that, we're going to have problems. Black people living under a Eurocentric idea of what is, a Eurocentric idea of what's beautiful, a Eurocentric idea of what's classy, a Eurocentric idea of what's professional. And it has been inculcated and ingrained into our psyche at such a level that we will forcefully and vigorously reinforce it in others who seem to not be compliant. I once heard Dr. Umar Johnson say that white supremacy racism is absolutely nothing without Black compliance. I 100% concur that it is the compliance of Blacks in primarily in our ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance as an insult, I mean it as a state of being. Ignorance is simply the ignoring of facts or the unawareness of facts. And then there comes a behavior out of that ignorance that normally works against you. All of us are ignorant of something. No one knows everything, but you must make it your business to know as much as you possibly can about the things that affect you. We don't do that. We have a trust in a system that has historically ravaged us. We trust it so much that we give our children to it and ask them to educate our children. I believe it was Brother Malcolm that said that only a fool would trust his enemies to educate his children. But here we are. We are sending out our kids into the world ill-equipped to navigate the labyrinthine corridors of society, a society that is inherently hostile towards them. We have not empowered them. We have not prepared them. In both of my books that were primarily focused on education, The Miseducation of Black Youth in America, which is my 16th book, and Academic Apartheid, which was my 24th book, I make it very clear that education in Black America has to be viewed as the holistic empowerment and preparation of young Black youth to be able to develop into adults and go out into a world that is inherently hostile towards them and not only compete, but win. We are living in a culture that has accepted mediocrity as a lot in life. We live in a culture that has accepted poverty as a lot in life. We live in a culture that has accepted subservience as a lot in life. We have now acquiesced to seeking the approbation and approval of an outside entity that literally should be looking towards us for the answers. But we are doing this because we don't know ourselves. That's why programs like Black Men Lead are so important to the community, because it is not simply a rite of passage in the sense of saying, hey, one day you're going to be a man. It's in identifying the role of manhood, identifying the responsibilities of manhood, identifying the challenges of manhood, explaining the differences in strength as you grow older from being a young boy and becoming a teenager and a man, why your body changes and you become physically stronger and you become typically larger than your female counterpart. There's a move and a need for protection. We're not providing that in our community, and we must ask ourselves why. We must ask ourselves why it's so easy for our young girls to leave home uncovered and unprotected. Why are we now so heavily engaged in seeing our body as our greatest asset? We have failed both our male and our female progeny. We have failed them in that we have not prepared them to be what they need to be in order to be winners in this world. We have made them robots. We have made them chasers of an illusion because we have not properly given them an identity. We have not properly socialized them into the power of themselves. And we have left them to practice a form of self-hatred that is so immensely destructive that we cannot see our way out of the situation. Our children are killing themselves. We are now at the top of the list in suicides in the age group of 5 to 11, primarily young Black girls. The studies prove that a great deal of this is the influence of social media platforms, especially Instagram. And where are your kids? TikTok and Instagram. And we don't understand that there is a price to pay when you're spending more screen time than you are parent and child time, when you are not engaged in preparing our youth. And we have 1.5 million men missing in the community, and we wonder why our young black males are running rampant and have an illusion and a lost sense of identity and can't even truly define what black manhood is. That's why I shared um, my 5 P's of black manhood. 5 P's of black manhood. And if you want to really look into it and see it, it is a basic premise under which we teach young black males the responsibility of manhood, especially when you have a home that you're responsible for. You are to be a protector, a provider, a promoter, an uplifter. You are to be a priest, a direct connection between your family, your house, and those you cover, and the divine source of your life. You are to be a prophet, meaning that you are to speak power into the lives of the people that you cover, from your wife to your kids and on down. You are to be one who speaks over and through the life of your children. You are to be the one who they look to when things become hectic. You are to be the calming source. And this isn't a release of responsibility to our women. There's a role that you play that is so integral to the success of your home, to the success of your community, to the success of your people. It has become real easy for us to simply point fingers and place blame, because then there's no accountability. See, when you get to, see, it's always somebody that you can point at and say they did this. And a lot of times you're right. I mean, uh, I've seen both sides. Being a person who has helped people heal, I've seen both sides. I've seen some women that have been done wrong. I've seen some men who have been done equally as wrong. I see behaviors that are not conducive to empowerment, and it's coming from both sides. We can spend a whole bunch of time pointing fingers and placing blame. We could spend a whole lot of time pointing fingers and placing blame. But let me explain something to you. I teach people how to get the best out of their lives. That's what I do for a living. And I help people heal from trauma and everything in between. But when I'm working with people and it's about performance and getting everything out of life, the first thing you got to do is you got to take responsibility. You got to release the thing, because see, people are going to do things to you, but you got to release it. And then you got to focus on what you want to become. You got to focus on healing. You got to look at, we are a people who went through 246 years of chattel slavery, where we had our values, interests, and principles ripped away from us. That's for 246 years where we didn't have a right to have our own name. We didn't have a right to start a family and be able to hold and have that family unit respected. We had our children and our spouses sold from underneath us. We had no right to choose when we would wake up and where we would go. For 246 years, we were property. And then after 246 years, we were released, and we didn't get any type of healing, any type of connectivity. And I don't think you get to understand, if a young 19-year-old kid goes over to Iraq, goes over to Afghanistan, goes over into a high conflict area and experiences death and comes back, they have to be treated for PTSD. And that's a 6-month to a 9-month deployment. And they're being treated for PTSD. And there are far-reaching and long-standing issues that come out of that, where they are normally dealing with this stuff years and years and years after it happened. And yet we had generation after generation after generation after generation of our people that didn't even have a sense of self, because their identity had been ripped away. Their spirituality had been ripped away. Their names had been ripped away. A sense of history. All the griots, the one who told the stories about what used to be, were killed off, because there couldn't be any reminders of our greatness. So they were taken away immediately. The roles were diminished. And we walked out of that, and somehow we survived. But it didn't mean that we were whole. And then it would be one thing if we walked out and immediately we were given the solid platform of equal standing, but that ain't what happened. Most of us were freed right here in the South, where over the next 12 years, we would have what's known now as Reconstruction, where the South literally rained terror on Union military installations until they decided to pick up and leave. And when the North, the Union military left, that left everybody here to deal with the South. And what they did is they just took everything back to where it was. They just stopped calling us slaves. But what did they do? They came up with convict leasing. What's that? That's where when you become, when you go to jail, you can be leased out to entities for pennies on the dollar to do services. So you had, then they criminalized things like vagrancy. Well, if you are freed and you don't have a job and you don't have a home, guess what? You're a vagrancy. So they made vagrancy a felony. So they were locking up slaves for being vagrants for up to 12 years. And then they were leasing them out back to the very plantations they had been set free from. But we are supposed to be okay. See, that's called re-injury. Then there were black codes. What were black codes? Black codes were those times when the codes were the laws where you couldn't hold certain jobs in certain industries and certain, why? Because you had been doing it all the time. All of the work had been done by slaves, so all the gift and labor. Now that the industry, the industrial landscape was changing, and now people were going to have to get jobs. Well, they didn't want blacks to get them, but the blacks were the skilled ones. So they outlawed blacks being able to get those jobs. Then came sharecropping. Again, black people working white land and hoping to break even at the end of the year. See, I was reared by my great-grandfather, who was the son of a sharecropper. He experienced it firsthand. He had to drop out of school in the 2nd grade to go out in the fields and help his father because they had to make ends meet. Then there was redlining, urban renewal, benign neglect, and other forms of serial forced displacement that somewhat in some way do the same thing that gentrification is doing now. We've had all of that and we haven't healed. But let me explain something to you. We are where we are, not because of what they're doing, but because of what we're not doing. We're not forcing ourselves to come together and be a unit. We are still trying to adhere to and comply to a system that has set out to destroy, manipulate, and exploit us. And we are not using our own inner strengths to work that system or to work against that system. And we are still enslaved and we don't know it. One of my favorite quotes, and I share it a lot, and it's directly associated with how I titled this. It says that it's an African proverb, says, if there's no enemy on the inside, the enemy on the outside can do you no harm. Their threat to us is because we have not yet dealt with what's going on the inside. We're too individualized. They condition us to think of ourselves in an individual manner, not to see things collectively, not to see the power in us uniting. That's why we cannot get support for programs like Black Men Lead and Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters and so many other programs that are out there that people are actually feet on the ground, hands on, doing the work that can change the trajectory of our people because we are individual minded. Let me tell you something. It's not what they're doing that's causing the damage. It's what we are not doing. We're not supporting one another. We're not getting out there and connecting. We'll find every reason and everything wrong with one another not to be a part of something someone else is doing. We're too competitive with one another. People, I said this yesterday, people always ask, with the substance that you share, why don't you have as many followers? Because I'm not about conflict with my brothers. I'm not going to start a beef just so I can get subscribers. Watch how they do it. Watch how things set up. If you go and look, this person is beefing with, and I'm not going to call names because, again, I'm not trying to put nobody under the bus. I'm not trying to start. And this isn't about me being afraid of anybody. Anybody knows me, know that when it's time for me to get with you, I will get with you. I will get with you. But I'm not trying to create my platform based off of I'm beefing with this person. I'm going at that person. You know, that's nothing but sectarianism. That's taking one group and pitting it against another group. And now this group can't come together because you messing with my dude and you going after my dude. And we've seen this with so many different over years. And yeah, you build a following, but you create division. And division is one of the greatest forces working against us. It's not until we are able to come together. How can we expect our youth to come together and stand together? Why do you think it's so easy for them to go after each other? Because they see it in us. I am really, truly, in every way, shape, form, and fashion, trying to work with and grow and give young people what I told you a long time ago. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I told you that what we're going to need are some men, women too, but men who are willing to plant seeds that they may not live long enough to see come to fruition. And you're like, Doc, what do you mean? I mean that we are so big on getting pats on the back, being recognized, that we're out there looking for these quick panaceas and flashes in the pan to say, look what I did. So people can say, ooh, look at, and we're not planting seeds. And see, the seeds are the kids. What are we putting in our children? How are we covering our children? What are we putting in our children? What are we doing? What are we doing for our children? Because they're the future. We keep saying the children are the future, but we're not protecting them. We're not preparing them. We're not putting in there. When I stood up and I looked at why Black boys were so violent, they're not socialized. They have no direction. They don't have no sense of purpose. They have nothing to look forward to. Hell, they have no self-love. We have the ability to put that in them. That's what Black men lead is about. I ask for support all the time. I get it very rarely. We're trying to raise $10,000 since December. We've not even hit 1,000. I think we had 600 and something. But I still do the program. Been doing the program for years. We'll continue to do the program. We'll find a way to take this thing nationally. But guess what? They will give you all kind of money in the community for stuff that doesn't work, that looks good on the surface, but doesn't work. But take them something that they can literally look at it and thumb through the research and see, wait a minute, it works. They won't fund it. I'm telling you what I know. They will not fund it. Why? Because they benefit from our ignorance. They benefit from our suffering. They benefit from our oppression. They benefit from all of the things that we don't know and understand about ourselves and our willful compliance to a system that does not serve us. We have been turning out and voting 90% in an increasing turnout for the last 50 years. 90% of us voting Democrat. We've got nothing in return for it. This is no praise for Republicans. This is simply saying that we have not gotten anything because the system has learned it doesn't have to give us anything. We're completely on the decline. We are going from 1960, where 75% of young Black children were born into two-parent households, to now it's the complete reverse. Only 25% have two-parent households. Now, that seems to be a surge. I won't call it a surge, but a light increase in that. But we have to be responsible for our children. We can't keep letting devices rear our children. We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to ourselves. It's the darkness and the enemy within. When are we going to cast out the enemy within? When are we going to open the door and allow the light of our beauty and to shine in, the light of our power to shine in, the light of our majesty to shine in, the light of our brilliance to shine in? When are we going to stop seeking the approbation and approval of them and start celebrating ourselves? When are we going to start loving on one another? When are we going to start embracing one another? When are we going to start standing with one another? We need to start pouring into our kids. And for those of you who are bringing your children who you are concerned about with mental health issues and developmental issues and all the other things that they're going through in school and everything, keep bringing them. If we don't get support from the community, we'll figure it out, but we are going to do it. Keep doing it. If you want to show love, if you want to be a part of something, come ride with me. I'm not giving up on my people. I'm not letting my people down. I'm going to leave a legacy. I don't know when I'm going to leave this place, but when I leave, people will know I was here. They will know that I came and I gave it everything I had. And I'm going to leave some stuff that people can pick up and run with too. some stuff that people say, well, man, he did this. I'm gonna see how far I can take it. That's what it's about. It's not about competition. It's about coming together. I'm challenging you. Show some love for yourself, for your home, for your community, for your people. If you believe in the work that we're doing, let's ride. Let's make the rest of this year an unbelievable charge toward change. If you have people who are in need, let me know about it. If you can be a support, we need you. I'm calling everybody. Anybody right now who donates, I hate doing this because a dollar to me is the world. It's a vote of confidence because you don't have to do it. But anybody who donates $100, I will uh, give you free admittance into the Epic Realm community of high achievers. It is now a lifelong membership where we're coming together and helping to build. It's about exploring new opportunities and building and being in a positive environment. Now, this is only going to work if you're positive, because if you're not positive, you can't be there. This is about supporting one another, loving one another, fanning the flames of other people. And it's $100 membership, but if you donate towards Black Men Lead, I will waive the membership for Epic Realm so we can support what we're doing, Black Men Lead, and you can get into a community where things are happening. Marilyn, thank you so much for that gift. We have work to do. I'm going to be coming to you more frequently. We're going to have these more in-depth discussions. We'll still talk about daily things that are going on, but we're losing kids. We're losing kids. They're killing each other and they're killing themselves. That's the reality. From Black males between the ages of 15 and 24, a 49% increase in suicide in 6 years. We've had just this year, high profile, this isn't total, this is just high profile, female student athletes kill themselves. We've had several models and beauty pageant contestant winners kill themselves. We have Black women jumping off of bridges. As a general rule, if you understand how things happen, women don't normally jump. That's a man thing. Men jump. Women take pills, occasionally use a gun, but normally women take a more quieter approach. Worst case scenario, they may hang themselves. We're talking about jumping. That speaks to a state of mind. We've got to protect our babies, because when you start telling me that Black people are now leading in suicides with between 5-year-old and 11-year-olds, we're doing something. We're not doing something right. And we can't sit idly by and do this anymore. So my challenge is that it's time to stand up. It's time to come together. And again, just as I'm asking for support, I'm asking for you to bring your issues. We'll figure them out. We'll fight. But we cannot sit by ourselves alone in isolated situations. It's destroying us. You suppress it, it's coming up. The more so you suppress something, the more pressure builds. The more pressure builds, the more explosive it becomes. And there's two ways that once something explodes, it goes. It can explode or it can implode. But it's going to be destructive either way, because even if it's imploding and it's about you taking your life, you're going to devastate so many people. And we've got a bunch of people out there. If you could read, I almost read it the other day, but I didn't. If you could read the suicide note from Arlana Miller, the young 20-year-old baby who was a cheerleader at Southern, and you can see our hurt and the feeling of being separated from God. I said this the other day, and I'm going to say this and I'll be done. As a person who does this for a living, my greatest fear is that when I'm dealing with people with suicidal ideations, and I have clients who do have suicidal ideations, my greatest fear is one day I won't be good enough. I've never lost a client, never lost a patient, but I am so that's like one of my biggest fears, is that one day I won't be good enough. and what happens. So I'm real big on prevention. We've got work to do. On that note, I'm going to get out of here, and you guys have an unbelievable day. Hopefully I'll get a chance to check back with you soon.